How's it going, everybody? Too Spooky here once again, and before we get started, I would just like to say thank you. I was actually going to debut my first top 10 video when we hit 200 subscribers, but at the time I was just so busy with work and stuff like that I didn't get around to it, so I decided I'd just wait till 250 subscribers, and what do you know, that happened like a week later. So thanks a lot, everybody, for subscribing, and if you haven't subscribed, hit that button right there. You won't regret it. I feel like it's going to be really cool to come back to this video in like a year or so and be like, wow, it's kind of funny to be just hitting 250 when I'm at whatever number now. I don't know. Just make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's get started with the video. Today we're going to be counting down the top 10 Bankai in Bleach. Number 11, Kaname. Now I know you're probably thinking, this is a top 10 video, why is there a number 11 in here? Well, this was originally my number 10, but I decided to take it out, but at the same time I still felt that it needed an honorary mention. Kaname's ability is that it forms a gigantic dome around him, and this dome creates a vacuum that nullifies the senses of spiritual energy, sight, sound, and scent. The only sense the victim retains is that of touch, and by victim I mean the person inside the dome other than Kaname. The biggest weakness of his Bankai is the fact that anybody inside, not just Kaname, touching his sword's hilt will make them immune to the dome's effects. So anybody able to grab Kaname's sword recovers their senses. The dome only exists as long as Kaname wills it to, or if he happens to become seriously injured. In either circumstance, the dome shreds apart and dissipates. Now the reason I chose this one is because I like the idea of being able to surround your enemy in just nothingness and then just take them down however you will to, but at the same time I decided to take it out because it had such a vulnerable weakness. Anyways, that's number 11, let's move on here. Number 10, Ichigo Kurosaki. Now you're probably thinking, once again, really? The main character is number 10? I can't even wait to see how stupid this list is. Well, let me explain myself. Currently in the manga, as I'm recording this video, Ichigo has not expressed his new Bankai, if he even has one, because, you know, I'm not even going to get into the spoilers, but he hasn't shown his new Bankai. So basically, we're going off his old Bankai here, and his old Bankai was basically just a new outfit that upgraded his zanpakuto and enhanced his speed and attack strength. It also improved his Getsuga Tenso, but other than that, it really doesn't have much going for him. I mean, he's fast, he's stronger, and he can shoot bigger attacks. I don't know what else you want me to say. That's why he's number 10. I mean, it's iconic. You recognize the Bankai. It's got to be in the list somewhere, so it's at the very bottom. I'm sorry if you're offended. Number 9, Rukia. Rukia's Bankai allows her to reach the temperature of absolute zero. Upon release, a pillar of cold mist rises up into the air from where Rukia is and covers a wide area in her vicinity. Anyone within the area of influence of mist is instantly frozen, and once frozen solid, the victims will crumble away in mere seconds. Physical contact with Rukia herself causes other people to begin freezing solid because of how cold she is, because I mean absolute zero, man. While it is a powerful Bankai, it is also a very difficult and dangerous one, as the slightest mistake could kill Rukia herself. Because Rukia is physically affected along with everything else in her vicinity, the amount of time she can use her Bankai is severely limited, because prolonged use of her Bankai could potentially cause her damage, so she must thaw slowly when leaving this state, otherwise she could risk damaging herself. Now the reason this Bankai is at number 9 isn't because of its power, it's because of how dangerous it can be and how short of a lifespan it has. If Rukia's Bankai was, you know, less dangerous to herself and she could control it a little bit more, it would probably be higher up on the list. Number 8, Ikkaku. Ikkaku's Bankai, like his Shikai, is quite different, to say the least. Aside from the increase in power, his Bankai does not offer any special abilities or special defensive properties, but it releases some Rietsu, which starts to grow in strength. Ikkaku treats his zanpakuto differently than other Bankai users treat their zanpakuto, for they just let theirs slumber and use it when they want to do Bankai. But if he forces it to awaken suddenly, cutting the enemy and not getting cut becomes a lot harder to handle than it should be, so his Bankai gets increasingly more powerful as the fight drags on. After he activates his Bankai, Ikkaku's Ryutsu rises as the dragon crest slowly fills with crimson dye. It fills faster when he spins his Bankai with the center handle. Ikkaku states that his zanpakuto is very lazy in battle and needs to be woken up through causing or receiving injury. Now the reason why Ikkaku is also towards the bottom of the list is because his Bankai hasn't shown very much screen time, so we don't know a super lot about it. What we do know is that it's extremely powerful. Now the reason it's so low on the list is because it has, a downfall. The fact that you have to get deep in the fight to, make it stronger. So the whole time you're just kind of beating yourself up to get more powerful, while instead you could just be more powerful from the start and you wouldn't have to drag out the fight. But I know Ikkaku likes his fighting, so whatever works for you, man. Number 7, Gin Ichimaru. Gin's Bankai abilities are essentially the same as his Shikai's, but its force, cutting power, length, and speed are vastly amplified to the point where Gin is capable of swiftly cutting an entire town in half with a single slash while standing a great distance away. Damn. Gin claims that his sword can extend itself up to 13 kilometers, or 8.1 miles, at 500 times the speed of sound, exactly 171,500 meters per second, in order to arrive at its full length in under 0.08 seconds, which makes it not the longest zanpakuto, but the fastest. It also returns at the same speed. The biggest downfall, however, is trying to control a blade with that much power. Now the reason why Gin is number 7 isn't because of the power, because let's just say cutting a whole entire town in half with one swoop while standing still. The reason why he's so low on the list, however, is because it's hard to control a blade of that size. So if you mess up, you're gonna have a bad time, as seen with his fight with Aizen. R.I.P. Gin. Number 6, Yamamoto. So Yamamoto's Bankai is that the blade takes the form of an ancient and worn katana, severely scorched in fire. Upon activation, any flames previously produced by Yamamoto are absorbed into the blade. His Bankai incorporates the full power of Yamamoto's flames into the blade, and the flames within the blade burn anything it cuts out of existence. However, it has the side effect of depleting the moisture in an entire area, or at least the size of Sarate in this case, causing the air and water to dry up. Even Toshiro Hitsugaya's Bankai cannot be used, because the ice melts due to the intense heat of the sword. No flames are visible as it cuts. Yamamoto claims releasing his Bankai clads both his blade and his body in the flames of the sun, and that prolonged use of his Bankai can destroy his opponent, Soul Society, and even himself. Anything it touches is eradicated to nothingness. However, this ability is unseen to the eyes of anyone else unless Yamamoto wills them to be seen it, so you won't even see the flames. It engulfs his body in heat, which reaches a temperature upwards of 15 million degrees. Therefore, it becomes impossible to even touch him while he is using his Bankai. The level of heat produced by this technique is so high, it could not actually appear in the form of flames. Something else his Bankai can do is that by using the heat of his sword on people's ashes, he can reanimate all the people he has killed, allowing the corpses to become his limbs and attack however he deems. He can bring forth any specific corpse which he wishes, allowing him to inflict psychological damage upon those with connection to those he has slain. And although at the time he probably could have beaten that Quincy bastard, he failed to in old age, making his Bankai lower on the list than it probably should be. Number 5, Toshiro Hitsugaya. Much like his Shikai, Toshiro's Bankai can freeze objects and areas within a certain radius of himself, and the strength of the freezing is greater. Because the Bankai's freezing ability is much greater, however, Toshiro can swing his tail around as a weapon to try and freeze objects. As long as there is water in the air, his Bankai can be revived indefinitely. Upon activating his Bankai, Toshiro is able to create and shape a large amount of ice into his exact likeness. It is very lifelike, as it can appear to bleed. He stated that he can usually only trick an opponent once with it, so he usually saves it for towards the end of the battle. Hitsugaya is capable of wrapping his wings around himself like a sphere, protecting him from attacks. When Hitsugaya stabs his opponents, a huge burst of ice erupts from the point of contact between his sword and the opponents, encasing and freezing them. Hitsugaya then proceeds to shatter the ice and his opponent with it. Deadly. Hitsugaya can also create many ice pillars which encircle him and his enemy. At his command, when he turns his sword 90 degrees counterclockwise, these pillars then move towards the enemy, enveloping and crushing them. Though this technique is very powerful, Hitsugaya insists that it takes a considerable amount of time to prepare, and therefore the distraction of his enemy is crucial in successfully completing this attack. He has another ability that opens up a huge hole in the clouds, through which a large amount of snow floats down onto his opponent. As the snow comes into contact with the opponent, ice flowers sprout all over their body, instantly trapping them in a pillar of ice. Hitsugaya claimed his Bankai's most noticeable weakness is extreme heat, as can be seen with Yamamoto. Number 4. Kamamura. Kamamura's Bankai is he literally spawns a gigantic suit of armor looking thing. Now the giant copies Kamamura's movements to devastating effect, allowing it to deal out colossal amounts of damage. Its strength is proportionally far greater than that of Kamamura due to its size. It is strong enough to take a released Arrancar's point-blank Sero without being damaged, and could easily smother him with its bare hands. It is also durable enough to withstand a blast from Captain Soifon's Bankai, while sustaining only a few injuries. Despite its enormous size, the giant is also deceptively fast, as it instantly copies all of Kamamura's moves. Now the reason I put Kamamura up so high is because, personally, his Bankai is one of my favorites. Because, I mean, this list is kind of opinion-based, I'm just backing it up with some of the facts. Now, the only weakness I can see with Kamamura is the fact that his Bankai is so big, it might be easy to get around. That's why Kamamura is also on the ground, so it's more like two people fighting one, except one is the size of a skyscraper. Number 3. Soifone. Now, Soifone's Bankai is basically the only ranged weapon. So being a ranged weapon of the artillery sort, her Bankai has the ability to launch a missile attached to its base. To do so, Soifone must first raise and aim the huge missile, using the slits preset in her face guard to be able to see while doing so. Once targeted, small fins extend from numerous points along the missile before it is fired. It then tracks its target for a precision strike. After a successful hit, the missile creates a powerful and massive explosion, strong enough to crack Kamamura's Bankai, and heavily injured Espada number 2, Baragon. Now, the reason why I chose Soifone for number 3, which a lot of you are probably wondering, is I think her Bankai is probably one of the most unique in the fact that there are no other Soul Reaper Bankais that involve any sort of artillery, gun, explosives, anything like that. She literally takes out a miniature nuke and shoots it at the enemy. Now, personally, I think that's pretty cool. And if you're familiar with Bleach, and if you're familiar with the past of Bleach, you will know that when Kubo first came up with Bleach, it was called Snipe, and it was about shinigami with guns. So I think he's hinting at his past self by giving Soifone some sort of firearm. Anyways, that's just my 2 cents. Let's move on with the list. Number 2, Mayuri. Mayuri's Bankai creates a gigantic baby-looking creature thing, and this creature breathes a poisonous derivative of Mayuri's blood, which is lethal to anyone who breathes it. Aside from Mayuri and Nemu, the poison spreads through an of about 200 meters around his Bankai, and it is almost impossible to avoid. The poison of his Bankai is very potent, as Seizule Aparo's body started to break down immediately after it was introduced. The poison has an antidote which Nemu keeps behind her lieutenant's badge, and which Mayuri keeps on his person. Mayuri can change the composition of the poison as well, ensuring that no foolproof antidote can ever be manufactured to cure it, and no immunity is developed against it. Even if the opponent does not breathe, the poison will still enter their body. So far, the only way to remain unaffected by the poison is to repel it with a sufficient amount of Rietsu. Anyone within the vicinity of the person repelling the poison will also be unaffected. His Bankai can also produce numerous blades which extend from its chest, allowing it to run through and skewer opponents. This, when used simultaneously with the poison, makes his Bankai particularly lethal to anyone that cannot keep a safe distance, which is in turn difficult due to its immense size. In addition to creating blades, it can also apparently devour an opponent after it charges into them, killing them. Number 1.5. Shunsui. Now you're probably thinking, really? 1.5? Why didn't you just make this a top 12? Well, The reason is because I just couldn't take that number 1 spot away from who holds it. And since Shunsui's Bankai recently just came out, I figured I'd tell you about it and why it's pretty high up on the list, because it's pretty cool. Upon release, an aura covers a large area around Shunsui. This aura changes others' perception of the surrounding environments, making them perceive it as darkened, bleak, and gloomy, and causes others to feel varying levels of melancholy and despair. Any wounds that Shunsui or his opponent inflict on each other's body will emerge on their body as well, as if shared. Black spots appear all over the body of Shunsui's opponents, causing them to bleed profusely. Shunsui compares this to the story of a warrior who felt shame over inflicting wounds on his enemy on the battlefield, causing him to collapse in shame and become incurably ill. After this, a massive amount of water engulfs both Shunsui and his opponent, who remain within it until one of them runs out of Ryetsu and drowns. After sheathing his swords, Shunsui winds a white thread around his opponent's throat multiple times before pulling it tight, leaving a deep cut in their throat which expands before blowing up their head. Wow. Now if you don't think that Shunsui's Bankai is something on a different level, you're crazy, because that is some dark ass shit. Now number 1, the one that you probably saw coming at this point, Byakuya Kuchiki. Byakuya's Bankai has several forms. Achieved by arranging the blades in different patterns, each form presents a different advantage. Such as increasing offense at the expense of defense, this variety of techniques makes Senbon and Zakura extremely versatile. These techniques are activated by saying the name of the technique, followed by the name of his Bankai. One of his techniques unites the scattered petals into complete glowing swords, numbering by the thousands, which form 4 rows. These rows float just above each other and circle around Byakuya and his opponent in a continuously moving column-like array. It abandons defense in favor of a concentrated offense. Though visually menacing, this form is not meant for attack from all sides. Rather, it concentrates his Bankai into fewer blades, thus increasing his attack power. While Byakuya can mentally control these swords, he commonly calls them to his hands for actual melee combat. When in his hand, they lose their glow and take the form of his sealed zanpakuto. The deadliest aspect of the Sekai form is that it allows for use of all the swords at the same attack level, making it a way to effectively defeat an enemy unaware of the danger of the situation. It is extremely rare for Byakuya to use this ability, doing so only when he is sworn to cut down the opponent with his very own hands. Ichigo is the second being to ever witness the ability, according to Byakuya. This technique requires Byakuya's blood to activate. Another form increases the number of tiny blades immensely. It creates a spherical formation of invulnerable blade fragments, which swirl around the opponent like a cloud before flying into them from every possible angle, leaving no blind spots and no possibility of escape. It proceeds to collapse in on itself, obliterating the opponent. When used, it completely obliterated a very large building from the inside out, and the resulting shockwave generated by the attack forced Byakuya himself to flash step away, and his final ability condenses each and every one of his blades into a single potent sword, drastically increasing its cutting power. The spiritual energy and pressure released by this form is immense. The blade appears bright white and its aura takes the form of a bird, earning it the name Hakutiken. Pure white wings form on Byakuya's back as well as the halo-like circle made of concentrated spiritual energy. This form's blade can create aggravated injuries in a single blow, and the wings can be used for flight. And there you have it, everybody. The top 10 Bankai in Bleach. If you enjoyed this top 10, make sure to leave a like. I plan on doing some more, but if you guys aren't into it, well, then I probably won't. And if you did enjoy this top 10, make sure to leave a comment on what you would like to see a top 10 about next. And also, if there's a Bankai you think deserved to be on the list, or higher on the list, or lower on the list, make sure to tell me about it in the comment section down below. And also, if you didn't listen to me about subscribing at the beginning of the video, you should do that right now. It would mean so much to me if you could. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed the list. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.